Ariana Angel, could you please raise up your Brian from the story? Thank you. Miss Kaylee Marlowe? Excellent. Mr. Noah Basler? Very nice. Annie Wellspeak? Thank you very much. Terrific job, all four of you. I appreciate you coming.
Yes. Thank
you. Appreciate it. Have a very nice summer.
Nice job.
Parents, thank you for your support. I know this time of the year, students, it's hard to come back in the evening, but thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda, is there any public comments? Okay, all our public is leaving. Okay. All right, next is Bill Botsow for Consolidation Bill HR 883. Come on down, Bill.
How would you like this? Should I pull up chair?
Yes, would you please? Yeah. I feel this is right in my face.
Not to trip on the wires. Okay. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay.
I think the request was, and thank you very much, Doug and Cindy, was wanted to be absolutely sure on the status of the school governance bill and where that was. And I think, Doug, I think you wanted it to be absolutely clear to everybody what the status of it is. The status of it is there is no bill anymore. Is that when you get to the end of a session, at the end of 2 years, any bill that is not passed goes away.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean the ideas go away,
Right.
but they would have to go back and be introduced and go all the way through any committee process, through both houses to the governor's desk, just like any new bill.
So they'd have to start over.
Absolutely. It's back to zero. 883, the numbers for this session got up to about 886 or so. You can usually tell about halfway through that we were up in about the 400s or so at the end of the first year. Those bills, if they don't pass, are eligible in the second year of a biennium. But that's the way the legislature works. And so that's, I want you to be absolutely sure about that. There were two bills that had governance pieces in them. One was the 883, which was discussed in the House throughout the session. And it went over from the House to the Senate. And I won't get into all the little details, but if you go over late, you have to meet crossover. It did not. It went to the Senate Rules Committee. The Senate had its own ideas, and it put them onto a miscellaneous education bill, and that also did not pass. So there's, in terms of what did pass for education, what did not pass, there was nothing that touched governance in any way, which we would be doing anything. Personally, I think this is appropriate. I think that the conversation is appropriate. It's been going on for 10, 15, 20 years, and the state of Vermont has not taken a serious look at school governance. Well, it's taken a serious look, but there has not been a change for over 100 years. About 110 years was when our current school district governance system happened. Then, of course, along came supervisory unions at a certain point and pieces. So I think probably the question you anticipate is, where does it go from here? I think where it goes from here is, and what this did, and I think the silver lining part, is it got the conversation going and back where it belongs. And it got it back where it belongs at the local level, in which the School Board Association has, and I've looked at their position, and their position, I agree with it. It really has to do with saying this is a serious issue and we should be looking at it, and we should be working it through, and working, I believe, also as closely as they can with other parties, whether that's the Department of Education or the Supervisors Association, or it's not association, but that group, towards what is the best way forward on two basic thoughts. One is, how do we best provide the education our young people need to be successful in the future? And the other one is, how can we do that for value? What's the cost point? How can we do that? What can communities actually do? And considering the variety of circumstances across this state, and there are obviously a lot of them, so I think those are both very important, issues. These laws, when they're made, they obviously apply to many supervisory unions and districts throughout the state. I think this one is slightly different than others in that there's a fair number of towns, a fair number of schools. It has a critical mass, and it has a lot of diversity within its schools. Many issues, came up through it, and it comes down to what is the best way to provide, the opportunities that students need, which is something I believe that you work on and do all the time. And the school board is obviously one of the hardest jobs going in the state, close to parents.
Okay, I have two questions.
Yes.
I do know that the Vermont School Board Association had a lot of ideas. They sent emails out and they asked us what did we think. The part that bothered me was, I think they had 5 meetings throughout the state, and not one meeting was down in this area.
Yes.
When we have one of the biggest districts, and I realize that we're convoluted, but I mean, we, like everything else, we shouldn't be forgotten. Our word is important.
I agree with you. Today, on a different matter, I was working to get people down here for a meeting on another bill that'll concern citizens on not an education issue, but a different
Right.
one.
So when this goes back next year and the session opens up, undoubtedly they're gonna bring it back on the floor, I would assume.
Well, we'll see what happens and how it happens. I think that's hard to totally predict. What I do know, speaking to your point, is that there are regional meetings for the Vermont School Board Association. And the one in middle of September, I think it's the 15th when I looked it up, is in Manchester. So that's doable.
Yes, that it is doable.
It'll
Yeah.
be followed up by a bigger meeting at Lake Maury. And, I would recommend that the school board think seriously about making sure that, and that is in early October, that somebody from the school board or even school boards in this area attend that one as well to do it.
Well, I think it's important that they hear all of our, I'm not saying it's a good idea, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm willing to listen to all the factors, what they got to offer. Personally, it's not gonna save a penny. They can sit there and tell us it's gonna save money, it's not. The key thing is if it'll better the education for the children, I mean, it's a no-brainer. We should be able to try and do it, but we need to be heard. And not just the legislators sitting up there. That's my spiel.
There was a lot of discussion, and I've thought about this a lot. These were probably some of the more difficult votes in the session. I was also aware that it was unlikely that the bill would move through the Senate in any significant form and when it came through the House. But if the bill had just plain died in the House, we wouldn't be having this discussion, and all of the schools around Vermont wouldn't be having this discussion aimed at exactly what you think right now. It would have been there, done that. The bottom line question is, are we organized to do our best work for our students? And I was very impressed, at the last meeting I came to just to listen to the school board talk about what are the pieces that you really thought were mission critical. And remember them all from standards, and Jim, you mentioned standards were very important, and you mentioned that piece, preparing our students for the future. Those are the pieces. A lot of the tax, how we pay for it, happens in different bills. And that happens more in the Ways and Means Committee than the Education Committee, even though they, they divide it up and they work together and bring it back. And I would say the overall goal is to be moving things as much as possible on ability to pay and also to control overall costs. Is that I think we could probably all have a long discussion for the entire evening about our funding system
Say,
and education.
you don't have the time.
And I know we would have, solid agreement on what we want in terms of that. And, I voted to move these bills along with a little bit of heart and hand or so, but I felt we need to truly have this discussion. I'll also say is that within the process, there were opportunities and there were groups or so, and when I took my opportunity to testify before the Education Committee, you can well imagine that I would have had the Woodford School well in mind here as my other school, which I would say probably is in potentially a more difficult situation than the Pownal School, no matter what. And I was able to get into the bill a piece that I thought was very important, was that nobody had really considered the impact this would have on how the National Forest money would be spent, because right now it's a considerable piece in Pownal, it's somewhat of a piece in Bennington, but in some of our small towns, what effect that would have. Like if the goals were a better education, at a lower cost point or value point for the citizens, Woodford would conceivably be in the place where their educational opportunities would be less available and their tax rate would go up, if you do that. And the National Forest money would be a big part of that conversation, as whatever. I'd also point out for others is that the small school grant change did not go through either. It did not go through either. So we're basically where we were about a year ago, but there's a great deal more attention, and I encourage us to figure out what we want and to go forward with what we want, to be proactive more than reactive in doing this.
Well, even if they use the what do they call it, the webinar, that's right there in Bennington, and people could go. I mean, it'd be easier to just, when they had their meetings, broadcast it through the webinar. I've been to many seminars through those.
For
Connected TV.
Connected TV.
for which particular meetings?
Well, when they're gonna discuss this this
Oh, in all the-
consolidation issue.
In all the committee rooms, all of the time.
Sure, I mean, rather than trying to make the southern people drive all the way north, you know what I'm
Sure.
saying?
I think, I would like to see that. I think the more transparent and things are, and the more
You'd
people
get the
participate
attendance would be
together, the
higher.
better.
Yeah.
We did move this year in terms of technology for the first time of going paperless in our rooms, and you can Skype people in or out, and anybody who wanted to can testify that way. So that is a real possibility that can happen. And whenever anybody does want to testify, is that I think any of our reps will make sure that the committee knows that, and the chairs will do everything they can to testify, to make sure that they do have that opportunity. I know, Catherine, I believe you were up to testify on perhaps the supervisory unions. Bottom line is that, one of the thoughts I have is that for us to truly understand this in the way of that, we have a lot of schools, we have infrastructure, and at what size do our schools work best? There's a lot of experience here in terms of the number of students, or Woodford and other ones. Where is it that they are really considering the building, the classroom sizes, and almost work out from there? Is how do you design so that they are at their critical point of you have the right number of people for stimulation, but not so many that people are getting lost. So, ideas like that need to come up through along the line, and that would be important.
Well, again, that goes to communication, and I think, this is an important issue, so you can definitely have a lot of communication on it. That's.
And I'll also say, as I brought forth the Education Committee, a couple of other ideas that did not go as far, but move forward again, and that was one is that if they were going to have a group that was gonna go and do some assessments, is that if the school board requested, they don't have to, but that there would be a meeting in the actual school. And I don't think that would be particularly burdensome, but I find I learn a lot by showing up, and it's always a pleasure to be in this school and see how it works, what people do, graduation tomorrow night, that excitement and all that. I think also another way to look, I think schools do not have the ability to understand what the schools that are like them in terms of size and makeup, how they compare to that particular peer group. You get compared to a very huge group, but to understand what a school is somewhat like you, what are they doing that you could do, and what are you doing that they could do, might be a way that would be really helpful. And with all the data that we have now available, even in recent years, those are possibilities too.
Any questions?
I do. So HR 883 was passed by the House.
H 883 passed the House.
Passed by- And I have copies of the whole bill here. But in the bill, which was the first third part of becoming law, the supervisory unions would no longer exist. That's the language of the bill. And also, the local school districts, the Pownal school districts, would cease to exist. That's according to the bill that was passed by the House of Representatives. Also, the physical property, the school, the grounds, all the books, everything, become the property of the town. Again, this is in the bill. So, pardon? It's in here.
Of the supervisory district, not the town.
No, it goes to the town.
They had to sell the building is what we
Oh,
went
they
through.
So-
the red.
So what it came down to, it confuses, the supervisory union confuses legal entities, if you will. The school districts are municipalities, and the town of Pownal is a municipality. You know, school district municipality. So it is a legal entity. So I asked that this be put on the agenda for tonight, just for these five people here, just to state an opinion of what we think about dissolving the Pownal School District, and to go on record, yea or nay on that subject. So the fact that we all know that it's passed, that it has failed, okay, but it was passed, and had some pretty important stuff in there. And we were all pretty much, I was called blindsided. I think we're all called blindsided, okay, when it came out and we read it and started reading about it, that this board was being dissolved. 30 more days this had gone through, because the governor supported this bill, the Speaker of the House supported this bill, the Board of Education, the State Board of Education, 10 days after this bill passed, voted 10 to 1 in favor of this bill. So it was 30 or 40 days from becoming law. So the Pownal School District was 30 or 40 days away from not existing anymore. So all I wanted to do tonight was, for the five of us, I made a little motion just to state our opinion on whether we think that the Pownal School District should be dissolved or not. Otherwise, as you say, it no longer counts, because it died.
Totally your business.
Yeah.
I don't have an opinion
Yeah.
on what you should or should not do. My job, I think, when local boards is to listen and be a resource. I know that 7 other schools or districts passed resolutions. They're all online. You could see them if you wanted to actually do that. And we'd go from there. But that's basically where that's at.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and I think it was you, Catherine, when I was talking, you said something very important, is that a lot of this is to make sure that students are well distributed in the schools according to what they need and what they don't need. The bill had a lot of pieces in that for there to be a lot of discussion along the way as to how a district could come up. And this is the work to do now, to decide how it did want to govern itself and had that voluntary opportunity. and it kicked way out there into the future. Look, I wasn't totally comfortable with the path I was taking. I am comfortable because I think there are a lot of smart people in our part of the world, and if they commit to working together to find a good solution, I think that would be a big improvement all around.
I haven't done the homework, but I think the school districts and the towns are aligned as far as the number and relationship, because the towns are all legal entities within Vermont. I think every town pretty much has a school district associated with it. So it was gonna take 100 years of local history and wipe it out, this bill.
There's a lot of argument, a lot of concerns along that line. And these are all good points that need to go and be thoroughly discussed and, through the legislative process. But I think on the other side of the coin is people are very concerned about how costs are attributed related to that governance piece. And for me is that my work is largely in the workforce development side of it, which has a lot to do with education, and not an education committee, and we did pass a very good workforce development bill, and been working closely with the supervisory union and others in Bennington, because I do believe where Vermont can compete best is on a very good workforce. That'll be the best place for us to go forward. So that's the most of it. More questions? And there's one thing I would like to mention before we go.
I wanted to clarify the building and the facilities, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, but on page 43 of 70 of the past bill, what they did was go back to the regional educational districts, the red.
The red,
And
yes.
the first phase of this bill that passed was voluntary realignment.
That's correct.
So it was to be voluntary. And in that red board, or study group, the red study group for the regional educational district, they would decide issues, including the ownership of buildings. So
Exactly.
it's not automatic to the town, but I think the history here is that we had a red study with Arlington and Sandgate, and all of the elementary districts here in the supervisory union. And there was some uncomfort or discomfort of feeling that one's own school building would be owned by the RED, or the supervisory district. And so one of the alternatives was to sell it to the town and have the town retain the ownership. So I just wanted to clarify that. I think that's.
It was left to be settled at the local level.
At the local level,
And
right.
was
It wasn't
left as an
automatic
option.
that.
And I think that is
Right. And
a
I think-
close read of that, and that's
Yeah.
where I believe that discussion.
And that was one of the major concerns was, for a district that puts a lot of good upkeep, resources to upkeep their buildings, that to merge with other districts that might have buildings that are aging past their useful life and have that property, combined. It was a concern.
Who gets the buses?
To agree with you, is that along that line of why I was talking about where do schools actually run best?
Mhm.
And how does that, and where
Right.
do students kind of go best?
I
Is
agree.
that, let's say your neighboring district is under a huge amount of pressure and needs to build buildings, which would be very expensive, and would ultimately be statewide shared, in a sense, is that there is that certain amount. Are there opportunities with basically people being comfortable about it to have students fill out some neighboring places to the point where those schools could run even better?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of creative ideas that would come from, and obviously the people who know how this school runs best are the people who are in it all the time, which is you, the principal, the supervisory union. And I think where we are now is that the conversation has been primed, for that to happen.
I think your point about the discussion of a lot of people and involvement in it is important,
Yeah.
especially if there's ever any part of it that's voluntary.
And to be proactive in the conversation. And this is a good school. I do not worry about it because you've kept up your physical plan.
An
And
instructional program.
and also I would say it's when I look at the numbers of students, is that right now they're steady. I know you have a third grade class that is fairly large that's moving through your numbers, and so there's those things going, forward that you want to think about. And I think your low point in student count is actually a few years ago, but that's also compared to about, in 2002 or 2003, it is down from that. But this is what the entire state is facing, is that demographic change. We may be, and I know Shaftesbury, I believe, is growing a little bit, we may be at a different point in that continuum, because I mean, Pownal represents for many people a valued place to live, and that we want to. If it's not changing the subject soon, is that you mentioned school bus, I did want to touch on that one piece that we worked on, just for the record, and that had to do with the inspections of school buses.
Oh, yes.
And it was brought to me by the school board and by Joel Burrington about the financial burden from a change that was made, and that buses were having to go all the way to. I was able, working with Mike Markov from Coventry, who's a town very similar to ours, and the Transportation Committee, to get language in the bill that was signed by the governor, that basically the problem is that your local inspector did not want to get a commercial driver's license, a CDL, and stopped doing it. And your nearest resource was well over an hour away, and when you looked at the numbers, it was, I think, practically a 100% increase in cost to you. And we put in a number of propositions, but the Agency of Transportation is not what I would say on the uptake for change. They prefer stability. I'm trying to be diplomatic here. And the one that did pass was that a CDL is no longer required. And what that was about is they wanted to make sure that brakes were road tested. And we put into it that they could be done on either automatic equipment, or when Joel goes to whatever, is they can go to a parking lot and test the brakes. And since Joel has the CDL, there won't be any conflict of having a school bus operated on the highway with an improper license. So we were able to find a good solution there, and that's passed. Hopefully it'll happen. There was also the suggestion of why 3 a year, there could be 2. I wasn't able to convince them on that. I would like to keep trying. And there were some other ideas also that aren't related to school buses, but to other equipment that has to leave town to be inspected, and that ideally I would like the inspector to go to the vehicle rather than the vehicle go to the inspector when that vehicle is critical for emergency services.
And that's what Massachusetts and New York do. They have an inspector that goes from town to town.
Mhm.
But we, in respect for the taxpayers, we appreciate the fact that you did what you did to help us. Because it was a significant savings to the
Well,
school.
thank you. It's not going to be a headline bill. It's not going to be,
That's all right.
this is
We
what we're there to
appreciate it.
do, is if you don't pick up the quarters, you'll never get to deal with the dollars.
That's
Or the
right.
dollars. That's right.
Todd and I would like to work with you at some point on the grant for the playground too.
Yeah,
the
and
tennis
Cindy,
courts.
if we could move up the playground under the principal's report, I'd just like to comment or share some ideas. Grace Winslow is here this evening, as well as Betsy Rathman-Gunn, and they came to myself and Rich early May, and we did a walkthrough of our playground and the pieces of equipment that are out there. And Grace and Betsy, you could share along with myself some of the findings from out there. But I think some of the major points where there is a few pieces of equipment out there that are not approved and are unsafe for the younger students through age 8. And the Caterpillar piece, the satellite piece, and the slide, there's reasons of concern there. So Grace and Betsy, if you want to share a little bit about that. And
the questions came about because we had our Head Start federal review this year. I think I told you when I came earlier that that was going to happen. And the good news on that piece, just to let you know, is that we were found in full compliance. It's rare a Head Start program is found in full compliance at 1,700 pieces. So we're very proud about that. But during that time, we had federal reviewers come, and they have to look at our facilities and the playgrounds. And they identified that some of the playground equipment that was on Pownal Playground did not meet today's safety standards. We know how times have changed with playground equipment. And so we felt obligated to come down and meet with Todd, and he was very gracious, and we walked the grounds. And Grace is our health and safety expert, and she also has had lots of training in playground pieces. And those pieces were wonderful pieces back in the 50s, but no longer meet today's standards and can cause some entrapment of children. And the slide, for example, is an old metal slide that we probably all remember getting burnt as we slid down when it was hot. But it has nothing to catch children at the top, so a child could get to the top and be pushed or fall from that very easily. And the drop on that, I think, is very is too high too. The space piece, I think, has openings that are too small.
Too small and too big.
Right, so children's heads could be caught in there in strangulation, and the Caterpillar has.
I don't know, the Caterpillar just doesn't fit in the criteria. But I will also let you know that, the school nurse at Pownal reported that
Could you speak up, please?
the satellite, a child actually fell out of, not one of our kids, but one of Pownal Elementary kids, actually fell out of the satellite, not too long ago, head first. So there, it's not just dangerous for preschoolers, it's dangerous for all kids. And we don't let the preschoolers go on that equipment, but we are judged, in our review, we are judged based on the equipment that's on the playground, not which ones we allow the kids to go on.
So we're here in partnership. That's our whole goal, is to try and identify and help all of you try and figure out what's safe out there on the playground. We can keep our kids from playing on them, but we're here because we care about, playgrounds and kids in general, and just wanted to work with you about the possible removal of those pieces, and then identifying a piece that might be more appropriate for just the preschool population out there, and kind of making it be a pre-K playground. As we know, pre-K is going to someday serve 3 and 4-year-olds. We're very happy about that piece going forward. So that's really our interest in coming today, and we're happy to form a committee, be part of a committee, work with fundraisers, do whatever we need to do. But we really felt obligated to let you know that those pieces don't meet today's playground safety standards anymore.
And that was definitely my suggestion, was to form a playground committee and take a look at what we have out there. We did talk about modifying the surfacing box for the swings and other things as well. But like I had told Grace and Betsy, I need the school board's approval for those pieces to be removed. It's not my choice to go out and say, these pieces need to be removed. I need the support of the school board by saying that these pieces are out of compliance or unsafe for our little guys. And then from there, we already have definitely enough area, and we do have some approved pieces that the kids could be playing on in the meantime. But I do believe that between now and the time we form a committee and start looking at grants and getting a piece that may be approved for the younger kids, at this point, maybe taking a look at those specific pieces to get them removed.
Okay. I'm kind of glad that you're here tonight, Betsy, because we have asked Bill to work with us. I've actually volunteered to be on the committee.
Great.
But from what I understand, I think it's a 50-50.
Would you like an update on what the grant is?
Well, I want to make sure that the Head Start is willing to pitch in and help us, and it not be just a Pownal school expense.
Yeah, exactly. We
That's
all are living
important.
on tight budgets these
Right,
days, so
well-
I can't promise you what dollars are expense, but we are also happy to help with grants. And whatever we can contribute, we are more than happy to contribute and look at that, absolutely.
Okay, that's good.
Yep,
Because
yep.
that's something that, I'm already getting phone calls on.
Yeah, there are kids.
Yeah,
There
thank
are
you.
kids.
Yes, you want to say something about the grant?
Basically, this is not a complicated or difficult grant. No, it is actually designed to be a few pages, not like a 50-pager with lots of data. It's part of the building communities grants. I think in your first year, we tried for one on Windows, but it was not successful. But this one, that's in a different category. This would be in the recreation category.
Okay.
It is competitive.
Yeah.
However, a lot of people apply in this category. But from the description of the project, I think if we know what we want to spend, and we have a plan to do it, and for the grant reader can look at it and say, oh, they know what they want, there's a clear need, we haven't funded anything in that area. I would imagine that there would be a good chance, well, full consideration for sure. You don't want to handicap these things, but I would say that it is definitely within the ballpark of what these grants are supposed to do
Right.
and who they're supposed to help.
I think we should put him on the committee.
And I think the Head Start partnership is a big part of it. And then, like you say, is that they are 50-50. The maximum, I don't know what you allowed is 25,000, I believe, for the grant.
Yeah.
So, but they ask you to say in the grant two things, is that if you get less money, will your application still be viable? So I think it's really not a matter of like, how can we get to 50? I think it's the matter of just really get to the truth of what do we actually need, and talking about deferred maintenance and safety, and are really, I think, very resonant approaches. So, and I'm very happy to work with folks and meet however, at your pleasure.
Okay, thank
Cindy,
you.
what's the source of the money?
What is it?
What's the source of the grant?
The source of the money is the capital bill. This is the Buildings and General Services administers this. It is basically bonded money, and that's why it needs to be about bricks and mortar, not program anything. The thought is that bondable, people will use it over time.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. They're called building community grants, and there's about 3 or 4 categories.
And again, we do have a beautiful playground. There's already approved pieces out there that the kids are enjoying. I think really at this point, what we're looking for to move on is to definitely form the committee, take a look at the grants, work together in a partnership, but having these pieces that are of concern and safety.
Well,
Kids are
I
up here
looked
on the
at
weekend.
the slide is definitely bad.
I did not mention timeline. It's always when is your applications and when are decisions made in terms of the planning. Is that usually they're announced in the next couple of months. The deadline is usually towards the end of September. And then the grants they try to get the committee together within a month or so after that. And so the awards would probably be happening at the end of the year. You may want to go ahead, previously to that, and that'll be a decision point of when you want this done and how that's managed.
I would almost want to make a motion, that now that you appropriately said that some of the equipment is unsafe, that it should be promptly removed. The board should do. Does it cost any money to take it down?
My only concern is that the slide, yes, the slide is bad, it's gotta go, but you can go, you don't. The dinosaur, what is it, caterpillar,
It's not safe, it's not safe
It's-
though.
it's not safe for the little kids. I don't know, I can't put my hands around just getting rid of that. It's
Well,
a
you could
nice
also
piece
have
of
a
equipment.
certified playground consultant come down and look at that and give you, we have all the guidelines. It doesn't meet today's guidelines for any age children because of strangulation, of hoodies getting caught on things these days and all that stuff, and so and the height of it and the cushioning factor and all those things. So you could have a certified playground person come down. I can almost tell you that those things don't meet today's guidelines, as wonderful as they are and the great memories they have attached to them for all of us. But they don't meet those guidelines anymore, so.
I would think we should move there's only a week left of school. Just to close them out, whatever those 2 or 3 things are, to shut off access to them somehow.
There's no way to shut access.
Well, yeah, you can put an orange thing
No,
around it.
it's not gonna stop kids from going.
No, during recess.
After school, it's not gonna stop them. They'll entice him to go on even more.
I guess my concern was with Caterpillar, what are you gonna do with it? I mean, it's unique.
Then can you see?
I'd like to see it go to some, I don't know, whatever the board's pleasure is. Do you wanna make a motion to remove them?
I'd like to make a motion that whatever playground equipment the principal, Mr. Phillips reasonably deems are unsafe, that they be put out of service as quick as possible.
Okay, that's a motion. Do we have a second? No second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on it?
I would like to discuss it actually.
Go ahead.
So I don't think we should just put them out of commission. I think if we're talking about getting rid of unsafe playground equipment, we should get rid of the three that have been, you
I
know.
was moderating it down. Yeah, I'm with you, I'm more with you.
I mean, they can't just sit there and we just say nobody goes on them.
Right.
I mean, that's just a liability waiting to happen. If somebody is gonna go on them and somebody is gonna get hurt.
Now that we know they're bad, it makes it even more likely.
Yes.
Exactly.
Nobody says they're bad, nobody knows it, you know, it's like, well, you didn't know, but now we can't do that. So
Like
putting
there's
our,
a
putting the
report,
school
right?
at
You have
risk.
a report, a written report saying that they're not.
Well, we're on television.
Right.
Well, no, but
The-
I'm just wondering.
The federal folks that came, because we don't own that property, they could not, hold us responsible for that property.
Right.
But they told us very clearly verbally, nothing in writing, because we did get a fully clear report that said we were obligated to come down and meet with the principal and inform him that these pieces of equipment no longer meet today's safety standards. So they were following their guidelines of informing us, and I was following through on that, so that's where it came from. But, because we don't own or have any legal responsible for it, the federal government couldn't hold our program responsible
Right.
for
I
it, so
just-
that's why it didn't get written up,
It's
you
just
know, in
that
that piece.
I changed my motion to compatible with Tammy. Take
I'm
no.
sorry, wait, what thing you said?
Did you say it was up to the age of 8, so it's okay for older kids?
She said no.
I don't think it means public playground scene.
There are actually two books and a piece of paper. I would have to figure out, it would take me a little while to figure out what exactly the ages were that could be used.
So you're saying that it could be used, but
I'm saying I don't know. I would have to figure out, I would have to go through this. I know what's good for our kids. Our kids absolutely can't be on that.
No, they're too little. Maybe we should move them.
That I know with certainty. What age it's okay for children to be on that, I really don't know. And if it's age 8, usually these are broken down to, ages under 2 to 5, and 5 to 12.
Yes.
I think we have two conflicting pieces of information. One, that there may be an age requirement, but the other is that the three pieces do not meet the federal guidelines for safety now, for any age.
And it's an open playground for the community during many hours.
So I think there are two things. Unless the age requirement is specific to these types of equipment, like the slide without the barrier at the top.
That's not safe for any age.
Pardon?
That one's not safe for any age.
Yeah, so I think that's what I was trying to say. There were some that were not safe for any age that,
And actually, if you knew how high that is it 84 inches or higher? Anybody know? Okay.
No, it's not.
It's not 84 inches.
I don't believe it is. It's a little one. The
Caterpillar?
slide?
Oh, are we talking about the
Oh,
Caterpillar?
I'm talking about the Caterpillar, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know. It looks high to me, but.
So the fall zone on that is not safe.
Question for
What kind of
Jim.
liabilities do we have for kids after school? Somebody, like if I brought my kids up here and they played on, they got hurt. I could sue the school, I would assume.
they would try, definitely. But we have an errors and omissions
That's what I
insurance
mean.
policy. Yeah, we have insurance policies on errors and omissions, but if
You better
school
not.
is not in session, that's gonna be a factor. During school, it's your reasonable, for what you have knowledge of, your reasonable expectation that you're monitoring the safety.
Jim,
So
is there money available now to dismantle it in the budget year?
I'd have to look in there.
Let's say $1,000. I can't imagine more than $1,000.
No, I'm sure that I could maybe find $1,000 to do that.
So if Todd decides, if we decide to do it, Todd can just go ahead and call somebody. and
Depending on what
tear it
it's
down.
made of, you might be able to scrap it and make a few bucks.
There you go. We'll split that 5 ways.
You know?
Buy a cup of coffee.
All right, so is there any other discussion? Or is
Yeah,
there a
I wanna
motion on
change the
floor?
motion to what Tammy said, instead of take out of service, what's your word? Tammy?
Remove.
Remove. The equipment. The unsafe equipment.
Okay, we got a second on that? Just a second, okay. So, all those in favor of removing all three pieces, signify by raising your hand. Opposed? You're opposed. It passes, there's three. But my thought was, whoever you get to remove it, I would make sure that if they can salvage it, that, you know, we get a few bucks out of it. All right.
Thank you. So thank you very much, I appreciate that, and if I could just add one more thing, if your patience, I just wanted to let you know that, we are also applying for an early Head Start grant that's, gonna be going in August 20th, and we certainly are going to include Pownal in that piece. So we hope that we will, maybe through Oak Hill, be able to extend our services to birth to 3, which will be great. I think that will be really wonderful. It's very competitive, it's national, but I did wanna take a moment and let you know that we will be including Pownal in that early Head Start grant. And, just one last thing, I'm a Rotarian, very proudly of that, and we have a student from Pownal who is being recognized on Friday, for a Student Achievement Award, so that's really quite nice also. So, Autumn Hayes is being recognized, and that's really quite nice from Rotary, and they're coming to the luncheon on Friday, so I thought I'd just share all that news with you.
Well, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very
good.
much.
Thank you.
Yes, Bill, thank you very much for coming, and, I'm sure the folks will be in touch with you.
Any further clarifications, Jess?
Thank you very much.
Cindy, can I just ask a question about, so the other piece to our playground, are we gonna form a committee to try to do three? Or that's-
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a separate subject.
To put new equipment on the playground?
Well, like I said, there's already existing pieces that are great. I
Right.
mean, we have a super nice playground.
I've been out there.
Of course, we wanna move ahead with taking a look at the grant, forming a committee, and getting approved pieces for,
Right.
the younger age.
And plus, we may even include our tennis court, because that could be part of it,
Oh, cool.
you know?
Okay.
Can we back up to the HR 83? Just want to do my motion. and be done.
What is your motion?
Next round.
You want me to read it? I wanna
I
make
got-
sure it's
oh,
not premature.
No, I just, premature or not premature, the bill came up, but we didn't have an opinion. I just think it was so, the bill as passed called for dissolving this board and this district. And I just think that this board should have an opinion, whether we're in favor of, dissolving the Pownal School
But
District.
how, but listen to me, how can you make this kind of a motion?
It's a resolution.
A resolution,
Let me
if you
read
don't,
it.
wait a minute, if you don't know all the facts. So what you're saying is you wanna say yes or no to this, when you don't know all the facts. Who knows? The bottom line is, maybe it'll come out to be a good thing.
It might, but I'm just saying,
Why would you wanna go on record saying, I'm against it, when you don't have all the facts? That's what I'm trying to.
because just reading the editorials from around the state, okay, there's a big uproar about the consolidation of power in Montpelier after the consolidation of the financing for education, okay, hasn't had a very good outcome. We're more than double the cost of education, and the outcome doesn't seem to be that much better. And now they wanna consolidate the actual administration of the schools. So, I'll make my motion, and like I said, the last 2 meetings were, I would just like the Pownal Board of Directors to state an opinion on dissolution of the supervisory union and the dissolution of the Pownal School Board. And it's written, so I'll read it. It's a motion or resolution. The Board of Directors of the Pownal Elementary School District hereby resolves to object to any legislative act which would cause the Pownal School District to cease to exist. And that's the language that was in the 83, cease to exist. Secondly, to object to any legislative act that would confiscate the Pownal School District real property and other assets. So the state, at the end of the day, whether it's by these nine-member commissions or design teams, is saying we're gonna take the school, do something, they're saying that they have the authority to take this building and do something with it. So, that's my motion.
But I think you're missing, okay, let's get a second first, and then we'll discuss it. Is there a second? I don't hear a second. it's a good thought, and I understand where you're coming from, but I was on the red committee, okay, and from what I understood about that, as far as the real property was, you would sell your building to the town. You still.
That was one option, that was
Yeah.
an option.
But the building would still be used as a school. It's not gonna go anywhere, the bottom line
Well,
is,
yes, it could.
maybe,
It could go somewhere because the new district is basically Bennington County. Supervisory union is a real funny legal entity. It's not anything. It's a partnership. If anything at all, the supervisory unions are a partnership. The supervisory union will become the district. Okay, have legal ownership of all the schools in Shasbury, for instance, Shasbury, North Bennington, Bennington, Woodford, and Pownal would all belong to the one legal entity based upon what we've seen so far. So I'm just saying, if you wanna, if the people of Pownal wanna turn over the school to the state.
I
Catherine,
just want more information.
Well, I'm just saying, they went ahead and passed this bill, okay? All right.
but it didn't go anywhere.
It got passed.
They knew it was.
Only in the House.
That's a hundred and fifty.
And
I don't agree with this bill either,
Yeah.
but I don't know, I don't wanna make an opinion on a future bill that might come that I may agree with.
Exactly. That's how I.
What was
I mean,
this
if you're
bill was
asking
that
me,
this
do I
thing
agree
done?
with this bill as it was passed in the
Yeah.
House and didn't go anywhere? No, I don't agree with this.
So-
If that's what this is,
I'm saying is that that the Pownal board just goes on record as opposing.
H883.
No.
I can do that.
No.
No, because
Kind
something
of.
exists.
We don't
Because some of it's good.
It doesn't exist.
Okay,
I was just-
Catherine had her hand up. Go ahead,
Well, it
Catherine.
doesn't exist anymore from the.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
The H83 is, no, the H83 stopped. It did,
It's non-existent.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I would just say that I think you need to really have several meetings to discuss something like this, and I understand, Jim, from your, resolution and the explanation of it, what you're trying to do, but, to object means you need to take an action as well, and so I think you better wait and see what action.
We didn't have time, last time this bill was passed on April 30th.
Well, there were many hearings, and I can make sure that Jim Coquine lets the board know when the hearings are,
Yeah, but,
for that.
but the,
Something has to.
this is my new grandson, he's 3 weeks old. His name is Sean James O'Connor, and he was born in Cologne, Germany. I'm doing this so my son in Germany can see that I did this. And this is my 2-year-old granddaughter, Jasmine. There's a reason I'm doing that, there's a reason I'm doing that.
To get you off this.
No.
Okay, so there was a motion, it was not a second, so, we're just gonna table this until we have more information? I'm sorry,
That's why I was,
most of us feel the same way.
I
We
wanted
need-
more information about the playground
And like
too.
we told Bill,
Sorry.
we will stay on top of it now that we know it's come out. It moved so fast, it was like a bullet going through the woods or something. But
We didn't
know
have time to
it's
get it
there.
on the agenda,
No,
to
we
say
didn't.
anything before it could have passed.
But Cindy, can I say something about that?
Yes.
Like, you know, a long time before H883 was formed, there were red committees going on, I
Yes.
mean, almost years. So there was this idea that this was happening, you know, and then there was these committees to study it, and then there was this bill that was formed, and then it didn't pass, which I don't agree with the bill either, still on that, but, so I know it seems like it happens fast, and I know this seemed like it happened fast, but it really was kind of a while in coming, don't you think? I mean, I remember you and Goodwin
The
sitting on
state
those
has been
decades,
talking
years
about
ago.
consolidation for years.
I think that the other piece to, start to look at, in addition to what concerns have been expressed earlier, is something needs to be done about the governance system. You know, the 7 school boards and the supervisory union, so the governance system is part of what is behind the ideas of this. They've been going on for decades, the discussions back and forth. And I think it is true, Jim, that this particular bill gained a fast momentum, because I think there are many continuing people in the legislature that have been through so many discussions over the last years of the sessions that they, they were anxious to try a new approach to it than they have in the past. So you're right, it did gain a lot of momentum very quickly. But I can make sure that Jim make sure all the boards follow the legislative, and if you want, you could actually put a legislative, standing agenda item on your agenda, and that would cause people who are composing the agenda to keep track.
I remember why I did this.
For them.
Sean, I was gonna say something about Sean Marie, and I remember this. So, the chairman of the Southern Vermont Supervisory Union resigned or left or ended her term, okay? And then 10 days later, on the state Board of Education voted in favor of this. So she voted in favor, our representative, if you will, or on the school board from this area, voted to dissolve the supervisory union.
She
which
wasn't
is,
representing the supervisor.
well, with that detail, but she was the chairman of the Southern Vermont Supervisory Union, and then voted to dissolve the Southern Vermont Supervisory Union.
Well, this was not a bill to dissolve specific districts, it was to offer a voluntary realignment. And then.
First paragraph.
And then a design. Well, there was a voluntary segment, in it.
Okay.
And the Senate
Yeah.
wanted to make it always voluntary, right, Bill? The House had a required second phase, and
Bill?
I think the one comment I have is that, if you think about it, this is exactly what the legislature wanted, was for this really important discussion to happen
Absolutely.
amongst school boards, and that is in people's mind, and that it's a deliberative process, the legislature. It's not designed to just do things, but it is designed to make sure we have the conversations we need to have. And so I think the good part is this conversation is happening here now and will continue to happen.
Absolutely.
And that the important part is just keep your eye on the basic part, on, that value equation between what you can deliver for students that they need, and that we can afford. And then I trust that Vermonters will figure it out.
All right, thank you.
except
And
there are a
we're
lot
gonna
of
move
smart
on.
people here.
Next in line, we have an executive session for personnel.
Cindy, what I'd like to suggest is maybe moving up the action items so that Jim can leave, and moving 5 and 6 after that,
Okay,
if that's all right.
is the board okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move down to action. Financial, the treasurer's report is enclosed. Is there any comment or questions on the treasurer's report? All right, there is no budget transfers. Okay, the facility. Okay, actually, the facility, I would like to, we got from Rick.
Update.
Rich. Okay. Okay, we did a walk around out, down and back. From the back door that goes out here, with the stairwell. Okay. The stairwell, you go down the stairwell out here on the side and you walk along. There's maybe a 5-foot piece of blacktop. And it goes all the way around past the kitchen, or up to the kitchen.
Yep.
It's in dire need of fixing. I mean, it's really bad. I found out tonight that Nathan, I guess it was, quoted as 15,000. But legally, we have to go out, if it's 15 or above, yeah, we have to go out to bid. So now we gotta go back to Rich and tell him he's gotta go out to bid. That's one thing that we really should consider doing. The doors and windows was
I'm so sorry.
$5,500 for the door and window for the enclosure. That, I think we told him to go ahead. Does the board remember that? Or he was gonna come back and tell us.
For the enclosure.
For the enclosure,
You
the
did the
door.
whole thing, because we voted on that in
The
October.
door. The enclosure we did was that. He wanted to tell us about the price of the door and the window,
Okay,
which he came up with $5,500.
okay.
But we did tell him to go ahead on the
Yeah,
enclosure.
he gave a quote, he's got a quote here from Secor of $76.80 for the enclosure itself, and then $55.25 for the doors, and the windows, for for a total of $13,205, and I think last meeting you approved the $13,500 for him
We did.
to proceed.
Right. So
Based
he's all
on,
set
based
with
on
it.
your motion that was made last October, that you should proceed with the project.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, the heater, that can't be done till the end of the month.
The electric.
The hot water.
The hot water heater, because you have to close the electricity down and all this. And the alarm will go off, so that's set to go. We're all set on that.
You've already bought it. Is it here?
It is.
Because you paid for it.
Yeah, that's all set.
Or we're paying for it.
So, the restriping outside, just the restriping, $835. And we took a look at it, we know it needs to be repainted. So,
I think that the striping is not really a capital item, so I think that's something that really should come out of the budget. That I'm sure, I think I can find some funds to take care of that this year, the project can get done this year.
yes, we're hoping
Before-
it has to,
yeah,
really
before
has to,
June 30th.
because, for beginning of school, people need to know where they can park and where they can't park. Okay, it's really helpful when it's marked off.
And
They're
you had
also
said
gonna
under
do-
maintenance repair for this year, you'd find the 835 for that,
Yes, as long as it can be done this year.
and that's through top coat applicators is what
I think so, I forgot the name
Rich
of
had
it.
said? So hopefully they could do it between June 23rd and June 30th? Okay.
Now.
Okay. All right, so, I don't know, is there any other questions?
Are we good?
For the striking, we're good, right?
No, we already have.
I think,
It's just an expense.
Okay.
yeah, we don't need
Just
it.
how you just do it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I'm trying to think of what else he said that he was trying to do.
He has the windows
Well, we
out
gave-
back, the normal process, or project.
Yeah, well, that, we gave him, okay
You
for that,
approved
so
that.
we don't need that either.
I just wanna say something to Tom before, I don't wanna open up the foyer thing again, but the airflow, just, can you please just make sure it's okay? Cause we're shutting off the airflow for the system, and make sure that we're recapturing it somehow. The drawings don't show recapturing it.
Well, I'm sure they will. Yeah, the suggestion for the enclosure was the bench that's in the hall. The object of putting the enclosure up is to take the bench and move it out to the enclosure if need be, so that when the parents come, that's where they're gonna stand. They're not gonna come in the hall anymore and stand in front of the secretary's doors or,
I may
think
donate a
that's-
wire bench for that.
I think that was the object of closing it, besides keeping the heat in, the snow off, it was basically the
Front
safety.
area congestion and safety, right?
Exactly, and I think that's exactly where the board was going, am I correct? Okay. All right, I hope I didn't forget anything as far as Rich is concerned. Okay, so that was facilities, now we have the consent agenda.
I just have one comment on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, motion been made, seconded, any comment?
It's $400 a month for the elevator inspection. It seems like I'm sure we have to do it, but.
We do when it's, you know, I'm
I mean,
telling you,
I
it
cry
used to
every
be
time I
$190 some odd dollars, and every month they.
Do we use the elevator? Do we have to have the elevator?
Yes, it's
Yes.
mandatory,
For handicap.
and we have no say over how much they can charge us, they go up
Do you
every
shop
month.
it? Do you shop it, Jim? That seems ridiculous, $400.
They used to be $190.
I know. I'm just mentioning it to mention it, because it seems like,
I know, I hear you, I complain about it. There's nothing.
Is Rich the one that?
it exceeds the bus inspections by a whole bunch as well.
Is Rich the one that contracts with that service, or is it a state?
It's a state, I think, yeah.
Then,
Well, yeah, our hands are tied, we can just, we can't do it.
Keep your antenna up for a better deal or something. It's
Yeah, it's-
pushing $5,000, and the bus inspections are, I'm just saying, maybe we can
I
change
hear
it.
you.
I'll check into it.
Okay, thank you.
End of comments.
All right, is there any other discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. All right, now we're down to policy 5156, student nutrition and wellness, and this is to warn.
So moved.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to warn student nutrition and wellness 5156. Is there any discussion?
Just a comment that it incorporates all of, what the new policy does is whatever federal regulations there are, it just references
Just
them.
references.
So
Yeah.
we don't keep changing the policies.
We have to update it though, obviously.
All right, so, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Okay. I don't know where. Okay, we're gonna hold up on 6. How about the principal's report? You wanna do that?
Sure.
You got half of it done.
I got half of it done, right? The other portion here, along with some other just announcements, summer programming we had talked about last month. We're getting ready for
Mhm.
kinder camp, bookmobile, and then the 4-week summer academic portion. We have been collecting some Pownal donations, or no, Chris Trezeria has been actively locating some funds for us, and I'll be getting with Jim to get those into our line for summer programming, donations from the
Mhm.
community.
Yes.
So we'll continue on. Yesterday we had our relocation drill over to the Pownal Valley Fire Department, and I tell you what, it went so smooth. These kids did an awesome job. Here in the future, we do want to collaborate with Oak Hill as well as the Head Start to do this as a whole campus. To evacuate, it's gonna be a little bit tight to get everybody in that building, cause we just barely got in there as far as all of our students, but it went so smoothly. The kids were excellent behavior. Their expectations of, how to walk next to each other, I mean, and as I stood over here on Center Street, taking a look down at all of our students, I mean, we were a community, and it was just, they did an awesome job, so I just wanna thank everybody for that. We'll continue with our monthly safety committee, next year as well. I don't know if we wanna do this every year, but we certainly could, but, at least every other year to make sure that we had this procedure down. Excellent job. Tomorrow night, our 6th grade graduation, so you're all invited to that. So we look forward to that, and I know Catherine was going to announce the end of, our school year is June 24th, and we will have a half-day, 12 o'clock dismissal for Pownal students. It's been a great year. As you heard from our meeting last month with the school effectiveness plan, and, you know, only good things are going to go forward. So it's been a great year, and thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, kudos to the committee, that they spent a lot of time. There was a couple of community members that came in, and they were very dedicated, and I'm glad to hear that it went well. And I agree, we should probably do it every 2 years, that would keep the committee going.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, one thing that, I would like to present to the board for their, approval is, Todd's contract. We thought we were gonna lose him, but he decided to stay, so we need a motion to rescind his contract.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made.
Rescind my resignation.
Resignation. Oh, yeah, resignation.
Rescind my contract.
That was a test, that was a test. Making sure you paid
I was on
Oh,
that, yeah.
I just wanna make sure you're awake.
Okay.
Alright, so motion been made, seconded, is, any discussion on it?
Thank God.
All those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Yeah, I guess you're staying.
Thank you, I appreciate your support as always, and, like I said, we're only gonna do bigger and better things, and we wanna continue on this route. Thank you.
That's our expectation.
The other thing I'd like to mention is, Sarah Washburn is leaving us. We're sad to see her go. I wish her good luck on her new venture. She's been an asset to our school. She's really been a good teacher. We wanna really wish her well.
Sure does.
Yes, very much so. Okay, so, the other thing I wanted to mention, I'm sure you saw it in the paper, I didn't. We had, a young lad who put our soccer,
Very good.
he was just amazing. I called him up and I set it up for Monday at 1 o'clock, and I had the press come. And the funny thing that happened, he came dressed in his Boy Scout uniform.
That was a picture in the paper.
Was it?
Yep.
And of course, Todd gave him a soccer ball to take outside, and did a picture of him kicking it, right? So we went out the door, and we were out there waiting for Mr. Phillips to come out. And this little girl, well, first of all, David went through the door, and he went outside, and his eyes, he saw all these children using the soccer field. And so the little girl ran up to him and said, "Sir, you got my soccer ball." And she took it from him, a little first grader. And it was the cutest thing. He went, "Oh, here." But he was so humble, and he was very pleased that when we showed him the plaque and we told him that we were going to call the field the Hodjanowski soccer field, he was just beside himself. And I told him, no, we were the ones that were thankful to him. The other thing is, Joel called me, and he wants to request the board okay to purchase software and an interface cable for the buses. In other words, the software tells him what is wrong with the buses and possibly how to repair them. He has questions with them at a cost of $900. He checked around, and he said that if he could purchase that software with the surface interface cable, it would save him a lot of time, and of course we pay him by the hour. So
His computer?
he has a school computer, but he said he was going to, once we okay it and he purchases software, if it doesn't run on that one, the one he's got is a 2004, I told him to come in and see Judy, that maybe she has one kicking around that. But he's almost positive it will run on that computer.
Is that almost an expense item too?
I would suggest it would be, and I can check to see if there are funds in this year's fund or balance budget to do it. Is this similar to like when garages?
Yes,
plug in?
Yeah.
yes,
you can get
like
the
a diagnostic.
diagnostics?
Yes.
Okay.
So it sounded like a good idea, and he was pretty excited about doing it, and I mean, he's willing to do it, so, I mean, I just think that the board should support it.
Mm.
Support it, but it's Todd's choice.
No.
No,
I make a
No.
motion that we allow
no,
Joel
it's
to
the board who spends the money. We have to okay it.
purchase
Everyone-
the software in the interlock for the buses.
Second.
Okay, so motion is made, say, is there any discussion on it? Doug?
No.
No?
That's a good idea.
All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Okay.
You just need to
And
find
you
the
just-
money.
So you can look and
Yes,
see
I
what
will. I'll check
little
it.
corner we can take the money out of?
Right.
All right, that'll
Thank
make me
you.
happy, thank you.
Cindy, when we're talking about money, is there a number for the warrants? Did we sign the warrants?
We didn't sign them yet, cause Jim didn't give them to us.
I think they're right.
Those look like bills.
Oh, they're right there.
Oh, you hit them.
Sorry.
Thanks for asking.
All the way up through number 9. We've done all the way up through number 9.
Yeah, we're moving right along.
And then I'll send you the
Okay, so I think, yeah, that's it. All right, and the only other thing I would like to say, from the board is thank you, Catherine McClure, for the years you have
Thank you.
bugged us.
Thank you.
No, we're very pleased with you. You've been more than generous and willing to put up with this board. And we appreciate it, and good luck in your next venture.
My retirement.
Oh, okay, well, that's a venture,
Congratulations.
that's
You're
good.
staying in town, correct?
Yes,
So
we
we'll
are.
see her out and about.
You will. You'll
Yes.
see me out and about. And thank you for the opportunity to serve the Pownal district and the supervisory union.
She should run for one of the school boards.
I don't think so. I
You see-
need a break.
you see the other side of the fence.
It has been done before,
Oh, of
though.
course we-
Retired superintendents sometimes do that, but
Did you get me needed?
I think
Yeah, I
will
think
now.
I will. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
so, we just have the superintendent's report. Do you wanna hold up on that until after we go to executive session, or do you want
I
to?
think I only have one quick item to let you know that we did get from the Vermont Community Preschool Partnership, VCPC, the grant for Pownal was approved. So there's about $20,000 coming for the 4-year-olds through the Community Act 62 Preschool Partner Program. So that's good news. We expected to get the approval, and I'll get you the exact amount. It's about $20,000. That'll help with that. The partner program under Act
For the
62.
4-year-olds.
Karen Brunel's community partner programs with preschoolers, the 4-year-olds.
For Dominic, yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
My grandson.
it's very good.
Yeah.
For Pownal, that
He's all
works.
signed up.
Yeah. Good.
Okay,
Good,
so,
good. That was really, and to thank you all for letting me serve, allowing me to serve the community of Pownal.
oh, see, I missed that. That's why I said that.
Yeah, so
Because
we
we
have
put
2
number 6
items,
on hold.
executive session first, and then the personnel and chair's report.
Yeah, I already gave my chair's report.
Okay.
And we already withdrew the letter of resignation. We did that, we accepted that. Okay, so, we need to go in executive session for, off-contract compensation.
I just had a quick question about, the July meeting. I know typically you don't have one. We will have a couple positions that we're going to need to fill. One of our teachers, of course, like you had said, resigned. We'll need to fill that position, and also our maintenance supervisor position.
So you can, give the superintendent the authority to, so I would say superintendent or interim superintendent, the authority to issue an intent to hire letter so that these people can know that they have an offer of a job and they can resign if they've got previous positions.
And then we can handle it in August.
And then you'll confirm in August, you would confirm in
Yeah,
August.
because, July, we don't usually meet.
So you need a motion to do
Oh,
that.
Checking it
Are
out.
you okay?
You
Is
need a
that all
motion
right
to
with
do
the
that.
board?
One question, is there a job description for maintenance time?
Is there what?
Job description yet for the maintenance?
Yeah, there was, and it was,
I've seen different grants, but, okay, I got that. Just curious.
So you need to make a motion for the superintendent or interim superintendent to issue letters of intent to hire.
So moved.
Okay, it would be interim. We'd have to refer to him as an interim. He's the interim.
Yes, he's an interim superintendent.
Okay, so we
Because
give
Todd
him
won't
the-
finish the hiring before I leave, I don't think.
All right, so it's a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Right, motion's been made and seconded.
Thank
Give
you.
the interim superintendent the, permission to hire, and then in August, the board will approve. Any other discussion on it? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Okay, so at this point, we need to move into executive session. We will come out and make a decision. So if you wanna, our panel meeting, an open session, and,
Do you want me to do?
yes, you
So your first motion is to approve the tentative agreement of the teachers' collective bargaining agreement, which is a 1-year agreement.
Second.
I
No,
can't
she
make
can't
the
make the
motion,
motion.
I'm just
Oh.
telling it.
They so moved.
Okay,
moved.
Doug made the motion. and
Second.
Angie seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the contract for 1 year? Very
Approval
good.
of the
It's
contract.
unanimous.
And you said the collective bargaining,
Pardon?
Collective, yeah, the teachers'
Collective
collective
bargaining
bargaining.
agreement.
you,
And then your next motion is to hire Judy
Bizon.
for water testing at her current hourly rate until you're able to hire or train a new maintenance person.
Who gets certified? We can hire maintenance, but they have to be
Be
certified.
Certified
That's
water.
right.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this one? No? Okay, all those in favor of hiring Judy at her hourly rate?
It was unanimous.
Doug, did you raise your hand, Doug? I'm sorry. Okay, it's unanimous.
Then your next motion is a increase in off-contract employee compensation to bus drivers, the substitute driver, your substitute caller, and your behavior interventionist at 2% for next year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made, seconded, is there any discussion, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All right, unanimous.
Mostly I'm gonna abstain.
I think that's it. I
You
don't
abstain?
think-
Yes.
Oh, this, I'm sorry, yes, you did abstain, okay, one abstention. All right, I think
I think
that.
that's it.
Okay.
Does that match what you have?
Yes, it does. All right, and I think that-
All right, that good?
yes, you did
I
good.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second is